Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Mark D. Brinkett, the Good News Doctor, and today I am very excited to bring the topic of microcirculation and the things that we do to build our immunity. And I have some amazing guest speakers on today, and I will introduce everybody in just a moment. But before we start, I want to just do a quick disclaimer. None of the statements or materials that we're putting together in this mini-series have been evaluated by the FDA, or representations are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure or prevent any disease. Okay, we are simply here to bring the good news and share information with everybody on the things we can do to help boost our immunity and protect ourselves, especially during these crazy times. Now, none of the statements should be construed as dispensing medical advice or making claims regarding a cure or disease. Any health claims shared by guest, host, co-host, viewers, students, friends, and subscribers, customers, and brand partners are understood to be true and accurate, but have not been verified in any way. So results may not be typical and may vary from person to person, but you should always consult a licensed healthcare professional before starting any new health protocol or any health device, especially if you're pregnant or have any pre-existing injuries or medical conditions. So, with all that being said, let's just get back to why I'm even doing this. And so for a few decades now, I have spent and made my life's purpose helping people achieve that next level or that better quality of health. And so have going through some severe traumas in my life, as many of you know, and being completely disabled and having to overcome all the odds of ever being able to have a pain-free life of abundance again. I can't give all the credit to just one thing. It was all the people in my life. First of all, it was my relationship with God and knowing God going through the traumas and leaning on Him through the worst and the best of times. I wouldn't have been able to even begin passing the accident without that relationship. But all the friends and the family and the support and the people that weren't too shy to speak up and tell me about things that they heard about that may help me. Now, I spent 17 years to finally overcome it all. And I can't even tell you how much money in all of that. But the things that didn't work, it was okay. Now I can check that off. That doesn't work. Let's try this, let's try that. And so, as many of you know, the neurofeedback, once I got my head wrapped around being able to do that several hours a day and not just a couple times a week, I started having major breakthroughs and could do so much more self-care. And then the essential oils was a huge breakthrough, and remodeled tissue, was out of my wheelchair, off my meds. Although for a year and a half after that, I still lived a very limited life, and not being able to walk too far before I'd fall apart, not being able to sit on certain chairs for too long, not being able to drive in a car for too long. I couldn't lift 15 pounds, so I couldn't really exercise. I couldn't stretch. I mean, there was a lot of things I couldn't do, but you know what? I was just so happy to be able to teach and share and talk and walk and drive and go do things. And so, I felt like I finally had my purpose back. But it wasn't until I finally found this technology called a PEMF, which is a pulse electromagnetic frequency. And I learned about the microcirculation and how important microcirculation was. And once I found that technology and was able to actually utilize it, it was amazing. Within 5 weeks' time, literally all those limitations I just mentioned disappeared. I started golfing, I started riding bikes, I started going on long hikes, I started riding motorcycles. It was like everything I tried, I was better and I didn't hurt. And so this concept of microcirculation is so vastly important. And over the years, we are always looking to see what's the best technology out there. And so in every aspect of my life, whether it's the brain systems, and I've upgraded them many times over the years, because I just want to stay on top of what's doing the best and what's working the best. So I have been a diehard advocate for PEMF, and myself and my wife, we do this every single day for about 6 years now. And so when a friend of mine told me about the Avicen. It's a PEMF device as well, and it does so much more. And that's why I have this whole crew of people on with me today, and I'll introduce them in a minute to kind of explain how amazing and how awesome this technology is. But I had a friend of mine and a colleague that also does brain mapping say, hey, have you checked out the Avicen yet? And I'm like, no, what is that? And so basically they explained what it was, and he was explaining his brain maps in that and what it does to the brain maps, because he knows how passionate I am about brain mapping, and I do a lot of that. And so when he was showing things like the addiction network in the brain completely came back online. Okay, that's not supposed to happen with just better blood flow. And then, you know, other cognitive networks and information that was traveling through and how it just cleared up. And then how long we can share information, this thing called coherence and lagged coherence. It was like 90% better. And it's just, I don't see PEMF ever doing those things, you know, in the brain map world. So it sparked my interest. So literally we got the machine a few months ago and we've been using it. And before I tell more about, well, I guess I just tell that now. So the biggest thing that I've noticed, because you know, as I've mentioned, I'm pretty healthy. I don't really have any complaints. I don't have symptoms, but I'm always doing the best things I know how to do to be healthy. And so having a different PEMF device that I've been using all along, that I honestly believed was the best, to find something that I can literally feel the difference. And I think for me, I mean, I know I've been getting on your Blog Talk Radio and hearing, you know, these last few weeks of all the different testimonies, and it's amazing how many lives you're changing and what you're doing with this. But for me personally, I have a whole routine that I need to do to go to sleep at night. I have CBD oils, I have supplements, and we diffuse stuff in the room. And so as long as I do all my little steps of what I take, you know, I can get some good quality sleep. Although I do toss and turn and I am conscious a few times throughout the night, but I feel like I still get good sleep. But since I've been using this machine, I'm going 6-7 hours, like really deep, and not waking up as much and feeling much more rested. And I have more energy throughout the day, and I felt like I always kind of had energy anyway. But you know, these are just subtle things because I haven't really done anything else that was different during that time. So just to feel more relaxed, that's definite. And then to get a much better quality sleep when I thought I was already sleeping pretty good, you know, that was another big thing. So the machine that we're talking about today is the Avicen, and it's distributed by a company called New Life Ventures. So with us today, I thought I was just going to have one of these guys on the call with us today. And this morning, I was very blessed to see that we have a little bit of everybody. So we have Tom Mulbar. He's the CEO and inventor of this machine. And then we have Bill Resides and Bob Dorn and Dr. Joseph Byrd that are all I guess founding partners, and they're with New Life Ventures, and they're the sole distribution for the global product of this Avicen. So one thing that I was really impressed right out of the gate, guys, when he was talking about being a unit that deals with microcirculation, was that it's a Class 2 medical device here in the United States. And so the one I had been using has been a Class 1 for all these years. And so I know they had been trying to, and so it was really exciting to see that you guys are already in that class of certification. So for the listeners out there, this is, who would like to kind of describe what the machine is and how it works?
Let me start, and I'd like to bring on both Dr. Byrd and Thomas Muehlbauer, the CEO of Avicen and the inventor of this great machine. But, you know, guys, again, my Bill resides with New Life Ventures, and I was blessed to meet Tom and to be able to stick my hand in what I call this crazy life-changing device. It's just absolutely has changed my life, several members of my family, and, you know, if you were on the Blog Talk Radio today earlier, I got a little choked up at the end of it because of all the lives that we're touching, and I get to hear that every day. We get calls every day first, Mark, I'd like to say, you know, and I know we've talked about this, you know, this is not PEMF, okay? You know, PEMF being pulsed electromagnetic field, you know, this is an advanced heat therapy and completely different technology, completely different as how it achieves that. I'm not going to steal the thunder from Thomas Muhlbauer. He's, you know, come up, he's the genius behind this product and had figured out, you know, how to eliminate a migraine headache. And I'll let him tell his story. And then, of course, you know, I know Bob Doran, one of our co-founders, is on here, would like to talk and give a testimonial about what the machine has done for him. And then, of course, we got Dr. Byrd, and I want Dr. Byrd to chime in there with Thomas Muhlbauer to validate some science. So Dr. Byrd is not only a co-founder of New Life Ventures, he's also a fertility endocrinologist, and he's certified through Synergenics in anti-aging, and he's also on our scientific advisory board. So we wanted to make sure that we really went over and did justice, so you would have a full understanding of the differences and how this achieves, you know, more than just microcirculation. And again, you've been on the blog talk, so you're seeing all the different variances and how this modality works. But, you know, with that said, you know, let me first, I had the pleasure of meeting Thomas Muhlbauer probably a little over a year ago. And, you know, I'd already heard of this device. You know, the word gets out pretty quick when there's a device that changed lives, but I had already heard of the device. Me and Dr. Byrd have got a relationship with Dr. Nathan Newman out in California, and he had the device in his office and had it in his office for a few years. You know, little did we know that he had met Thomas Muhlbauer at an event and was such a big advocate. But some very dear friends of mine had been in there, had treatment, stem cell therapy, and had treatments on the device. And we were getting feedback of this device probably a year and a half before we actually met Tom. So when I get the call to meet Tom about talking with him about ideas of how we could get this out, not just in the hands of the doctors, because it was available to doctors, but he wanted this machine and this device to be able to change lives all over the world. He flew in, him and his lovely bride flew into Chattanooga to meet with myself and Dr. Byrd. I tell you what, at the end of that night, you know, I think we were all ready to hug. I mean, we just, you know, we saw the vision, we bought into that vision, and you know, we've just been going 90-0 ever since to get this device out there. So with that, I don't want to take up the whole conversation here. Let me introduce Thomas Muhlbauer. So Thomas, Tom, why don't you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Give the condensed version, you know, if you will, of really how you created it and where this has come from, and then you know, what we've been able to do with it since. It's just amazing.
Yeah, first of all, I want to let Mark know I get called PMF all the time. Okay, just
I
like
apologize for that.
People mumble my last name. They also say it's a P. I used to say it's 40 years newer. It's newer technology, and I don't even respond anymore. So, you know, they care what it does, and what they see is the end result, and really that's all I care about. I just love waking up every morning and seeing all the testimonials that people send me. Love listening to the blog talk radio. So the difference between our device and PMF, like I say, it's 40 years early. It's 40 years newer technology. I found a way. I was working with Stanford University on human thermal cooling. And at the same time, I was trying to help my sister-in-law who had 25 years of migraines. I found a doctor that was doing a study on hyperthyroid women, and he had the hypothesis that if he could raise their core, because they always have low body temperature if you have a hyperthyroid, and so his hypothesis was if he could raise the core body temperature back to normothermia, then the enzymes and the hormones and everybody be doing a happy dance, and the body would heal itself like it should. Along the way, he found that migraineurs that were in his study were getting relief through migraines. And so one morning it just hit me. I said, well, if I'm using technology, actually I licensed the technology for high school football players. And why can't I do something similar and raise the core body temperature and help my sister-in-law who had 25 years of chronic migraines? And it wasn't as easy as I thought. I was told I never could do it. And we ended up filing all of our patents, and we've got 4 US and 9 international. And they're all based on the fact that we found a way to non-invasively increase core body temperature above normal thermia. So let's say normal thermia is 98.6. And we raised the core body temperature to 99.6, sometimes 99 degrees. We don't exceed 1 degree centigrade, and it all depends on rate on the ambient environment. You know, if you're in an OR and it's 68 degrees, it's more difficult to raise the core body temperature because the body is really efficient at getting rid of excess heat. And so the cooler it is, the easier it is for the body to dilate the capillaries, put blood in there, and then cool itself off. But anyway, so mentioning Dr. Nathan Newman, he was my first commercial customer, and he bought it because I was trying to help people with migraines, and he had a lot of patients for his cosmetic surgery business that had migraines. And I didn't hear from him in a long time after I sold him one. And so I was going up to UCLA Medical Center, and his office is on Wilshire off of Beverly Boulevard down that way. So I called him up to stop in, and how's it going? And I thought he wouldn't be using it, because who wouldn't call up at least and say, hey, I like your device. But anyway, he gave me a list of different things he had found using the device, and it was a long list. Everything from whiplash patients, carpal tunnel patients, faster healing for his patients. And so it took us a while to figure out what was going on. We worked with some people at California Institute of Regenerative Medicine. And so we actually found out that we increase microcirculation, and we do it in a unique way. Okay, so the device Bill had when he put his hand in it, that's a vacuum chamber. And the vacuum performs 2 unique and important functions. One is using the palm of the hand, which is your body's radiator, just like the bottom of your feet are. And there's a bunch of blood in the palm of the hand. So the vacuum first distends that pool of blood, and it makes it larger. So I have a larger pool of blood to rest against a heat transfer pad. And so that's how I heat the blood up to increase microcirculation. I'll tell you how that happens in a second. The other thing that the vacuum does is, just like if you think of the human body, and you're trying to keep the temperature in your house, and you don't have a really good heating system, but you have windows. And so if it's too hot in the house, you open up a window. Well, with the body, what it does, it dilates, it puts blood in the capillaries, the peripheral capillaries, to get rid of that heat. It gets cooled by the lower ambient temperature. And so the vacuum the vacuum opens and closes or keeps that window open, so the heat can get out of the body. But to do that, it creates microcirculation. It dilates all of the capillaries, and it's a very unique function. It's unique. There's nothing else like this in the world, because we're heating the blood. Blood being a non-Newtonian liquid, think of molasses. When you heat it up, it gets thinner, and so you have thinner blood that's able to move through the body. It can go out the fill the peripheral capillaries, which reduces the strain on the heart. So your mean arterial pressure goes down. So probably one of the things that you feel when you use the device, I can't think of anybody that hasn't felt it, you just feel more relaxed. That's because your blood pressure goes down. You've got warm blood circulating in the muscles relax. You have any nerves that the muscles are pinching on, it relaxes the muscles, and that doesn't happen. So it does a whole bunch of things, and it does it systemically. So if you have any issues in your feet, plantar fasciitis, we heal it very fast throughout the whole body. So we've got the only system that's a single point of treatment, the palm of the hand, that treats the entire body. And I'm not going to get into that. I'll answer questions on that, but that's why it's so unique, and it's so safe. We've had I had to fill out some paperwork today for the FDA. We've had over 8 million, almost 8 million treatments with 0 adverse events reported. That's phenomenal. We don't have any problems with people with any any issues. Pacemakers are fine. Blood thinners are fine. So it's a very safe device. And it can, if you've seen all the testimonials, I mean, I think I've seen everything, and then all of a sudden I realize I haven't. So it does a lot of great stuff. So if you want me to answer more questions, this talk usually goes an hour and a half, so I'm not going to do that today.
So then as far as immune response, if we're heating the body, doesn't that trick the body into thinking maybe I have a fever, so it's going to trigger some sort of immune response to help increase immunity?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's one of the, there's something for autism, it's called the fever effect. The same thing happens for the immune system. As long as we don't go over 1 degree centigrade, because then it starts reversing itself, you know, that kicks the immune system in action. We see white blood cells being produced, being sent to the inflammation area. Just read a great article in March Men's Magazine by Byrd, I forget her first name. She's Yogi Berra's granddaughter. And she wrote about all the crazy people that are icing, and that still lives on. They shouldn't be icing, you should be warming. But that's because we engage the immune system, and that's what your question was. And the answer is yes. I give too long answers, don't I?
So I know we can't say the machine treats any specific condition. It's helping the body regulate, bring back to homeostasis, and heal itself.
No, actually, we can.
Okay.
You know, our FDA clearance allows us to say that we treat pain associated with arthritis, muscle aches, pain, strains, plantar fasciitis being a strain, muscular relaxation, which is a waterfall. So there's all kinds of things associated with relaxing the muscles and getting rid of stress. And stress, when I say a waterfall, I mean one thing leads to another to another.
Sure.
So there are some specific claims we're allowed to make as a Class 2 medical device.
How about autoimmune diseases, things like scleroderma and stuff like that?
Okay, I can give a general answer to that.
Okay.
Anything that has an autoimmune aspect to it, we do really well.
Okay. How about some clinical studies? Dr. Byrd, did you want to mention some of the studies that we were talking about?
Well, absolutely. And I know these were in part driven by Tom's relationship with several groups, one at San Diego State University, I believe some other researchers at University of California, San Diego, and the VA Medical Center there. You know, Tom, I think, saw all of these observations at the very front end of use of the Avicen that he created. And it just created this interest on the part of the medical community to see if we could validate those. And one of the studies that was done related to pain, and its a big condition, is called fibromyalgia. Mm-hmm. It's kind of this one little diagnosis we throw everybody into if we can't put our finger on a particular cause. Right. And this device was the research was published in 2017 in Fibromyalgia Open Access. And essentially what they were doing is they were looking at people who had point tenderness, kind of general pain scores throughout the body, and trying to measure off treatment versus them being on treatment. And they did two types of treatment. One was a 10-minute treatment session, and they showed quite remarkable changes, almost all the way up to 60% improvement just with 10 minutes of treatment in those scores. But here's the remarkable thing. When they went to two 15-minute treatments, it went to almost 90% in one of those scoring systems of improvement. Wow. Yeah. And it really kind of indicates how when you improve microcirculatory flow and you pull all the toxic buildup of metabolism and things that get stuck in our cells when we don't get oxygen to them, the body has a unique ability to heal itself, I believe. And I think you see evidence of that in this particular study. Now, Tom, I know that there's a manuscript that's on its way, I believe, for autism. Of course, we don't know all the details about this, but my guess is, based on your observations, those are going to be pretty exciting results. Would you say?
Yeah, I got a preview of that yesterday at 4:30, or wait, Monday at 4:30, Tuesday at 4:30, and yeah, it accomplished everything we wanted to accomplish. It was a 2.5-year study, and there's something called the fever effect. And in 1986 at Bellevue Hospital, in a ward of severe autistic children, they found out when they got a virus and passed it around that they all got fevers. And the interesting thing is they became almost all normal. Okay, their speech impediments went away, their fidgeting went away, their ticking went away, their sleep, all their stuff went away. But when the fever disappeared, after a day or two, they all went back to the way they were. And the reason that hasn't been studied ever in a scientific format is because you can't give kids viruses. I mean, you can't get an I or a B for that. And
Right.
so fortunately, our device actually mimics, as you pointed out, it mimics a low-grade fever, which is also talks about how safe it is. But so we can cause the fever effect on demand. And so we've been using the device on our ASD for probably 5 years now, and it does amazing things. So the purpose of the study was the first study to actually include families, include different ways to rate autism, and our goal was, because we used 13 families, our goal was to gather enough information, try out enough new ways to measure ASD, was to be able to get the nod that further research needs to be done, and then pick out and focus on 1 or 2 of these points, because the endpoints that we had in there are probably 9 endpoints. And so, but it served its purpose. I'm really excited about it, because we have a lot of big organizations that now will step up and fund a larger study. So that was a go. And then I think I'll just save you some time, because you're going to talk about our blood glucose study that we're totally excited about, because this will change the world. And we started that last year, and there's 50 people participated in the study. There were actually 4 groups out of the 50 people. The first group was made up of 30 people that were healthy. And so what we did is we used the device on just fasting glucose, and then another 13 people on a glucose tolerance test, oral glucose tolerance test. And we had some good results. We had better results than I thought, because these people were healthy anyway. And the reason to do the oral glucose tolerance test is to actually look at postprandial reduction in blood glucose. And why does blood glucose stay so high after meals in diabetics? By the way, that's when everything happens. That's when all the damage happens. And so we did that. And then the third group was, again, from there on, we just continued to do oral glucose tolerance test. And the third group was people who were pre-diabetic, and then the fourth group was diabetic, type 2 diabetics. And the manuscript should be done in 2 or 3 weeks. But those results are, because if you know anything, as a matter of fact, if you look at COVID-19 right now, when they look at the serious people that end up in mortality on there, they're mainly people with pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and of course, most of those are obese. And so people that are obese, but very few people, and they're over 70 years old. So that's the predominance. And so we're really, really excited about that. And that's what I'm working right now, last night and today, is putting the facts and figures together, because the FDA is now, as of April 1st, actually March 31st, but they put it out yesterday, is they're giving you access, because it's so serious, they're giving you access to all other top people. So if you had a question on something you were doing and trying to get it approved, even on an emergency authorization, it would take 2 to 3 weeks to get an answer back. Now they committed yesterday to 3 hours at the most, so 2 to 3 hours for 2 to 3 weeks. And these are the top decision makers that we can get through to. And so
Wow.
this study and the results could not have appeared in a better place, better time. And so really excited about that. We did an earlier study on the reduction of mean arterial pressure from our machine, and that was at San Diego State again. And then we did a study 2 years ago at the University of Amsterdam on actually looking at microcirculation, bringing in 13 subjects and testing their microcirculation. And so we've got a lot of science that we've collected, and we've done this all as actually building a company and bootstrapping it. So studies are very expensive. And you know what I found out about studies? Even if you have all the money in the world, researchers are very picky on who they associate themselves with, and they usually book themselves up 2 or 3 years in advance with somebody that they like, maybe 4 or 5 years. So if there's, like, for fibromyalgia, it was really hard for us to find a principal investigator from all of the universities, and we finally found one that his wife used the machine and loved it, and that was his, that was his why.
Mm-hmm. Well, we certainly know how challenging it is to get clinical studies not only done, but then approved and then actually published after you get it done. So, we appreciate the time, energy, money, and effort you put in to continue your mission and to continue to further validate this, because, we do have a lot of people watching right now that have type 2 diabetes, and that's something that's very common. And so when when I think about, microcirculation, for those of you watching that don't really know what that means, it's circulation on microvessels. But when we talk about the cardiovascular system in general, and I go to the public and I ask a patient or ask somebody walking down the road, what makes up our cardiovascular system? Most people will say veins, arteries, and a heart, right? And they forget the capillary part. But the veins and the arteries make up like 25% of our vessels, and 75% of your vascular system is the capillaries. These are typically 200 times thinner than a piece of hair. And so when we can address movement through those tiny little vessels, we're bringing new nutrients, new oxygen to the tissue that those vessels innervate. And then we're also grabbing the metabolic waste and, and pulling it out of that area. And more people probably have more issues with getting the waste out than not having the nutrients come in. And so we just become toxic. And so, when I say PEMF, I mean, I'm really saying microcirculation, however we get that. You exercise and get on a rebounder and run around and exercise and jog. Okay, you're enhancing your microcirculation. So that's true. Now, one of the ways our body naturally does that is by releasing something called nitric oxide. That'll cause those capillaries to dilate and then constrict. So have you had any tests or any studies to see if it does improve nitric oxide levels in the body?
Well, we've had a lot of people that scientific people that say it, but I find it very difficult to measure nitric oxide. And so the answer is no. Mm-hmm. Not that, I mean, we have people who are much smarter and focus on stuff like that say yes. They also tell us that we increase the release of oxytocin, which is totally amazing. And there are ways to study that without doing a spinal tap, I found out. So yeah, it's the most amazing device. I mean, what we do with type diabetes in a 30-minute use with somebody that's got type diabetes, after a oral glucose tolerance test, we do something similar that would equate to a 60-minute brisk walk. Okay, and the key there is people with diabetes are most people with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, are not disciplined enough to do exercise, nor is 80% of the American population. So we've got something that can give you the benefits of 60-minute walk, a brisk walk, while you sit and have a glass of wine and watch a baseball game when they come back on.
And so, as we explained the benefits of microcirculation, helping get everything through your body more, the thing I loved about your machine, especially after I've learned more about it on this call today, is that, and I was trying to wrap my head around, how can just heating my hand create all these other benefits that I wasn't getting? And so it's the whole thermal effect, and it's the whole tricking the body that, hey, I might have a fever going on that causes my autoimmune systems to wake up and say, what's going on? Who needs help? Where do we need healing? What needs regulating? And so that knee-jerk response is the healing. And it's the extra healing that's happening. And so that's why we're seeing all these other benefits. The microcirculation part is just a side benefit of the product, it sounds like. And the main benefit of the product is what it's doing to our immunity and what it's doing to our immune response, in essence, and raising that core temperature, right?
Dr. Mark?
Yes.
Yeah, one thing that I saw today, actually, Bill Resides pointed it out to me, was some great research looking at how this COVID-19 creates the damage in the lung system.
Right.
And one of the things they're seeing is that the innate immune system, which is basically our natural killer cells, our monocytes, those are the things that initially see the viral particle as foreign and attack it and kill it, and present those particles to the other system, the leukocytes, that can develop, a plan to kill off the virus completely. But what they're finding is that coronavirus actually suppresses the body's ability to mount those monocytes and natural killer cells effect. Basically, you see that virus have that asymptomatic period of time. That's where it's suppressing all of that activity. And it's those people with diabetes, with high blood sugars, that suppresses the rest of the immune system, doesn't allow them to mount the proper response. And then you get it into the lungs. The immune system finally wakes up to what's going on, and it creates what we call the cytokine storm, where you get all of these chemicals being released from these immune cells, and it causes pneumonia, filling up with fluid in the lung, and they have to be on respirators. Well, what's interesting is data was showing that if we could heat the blood 1 degree Fahrenheit in those studies, that you could build the monocyte and natural killer cell activity, even though it's trying to be suppressed by the virus.
Wow.
And it also suppresses the overreactive release of those cytokines. So what's exciting about, I think, our product, the Avicen, is that it has the ability to address each of those problems. And I don't know, that would be hard to study and get that information available, but I think we can draw comparisons to other studies that have looked at elevating temperature, fevers, and things like that. That's why they say don't take Motrin if you've got a fever, because the fever is actually what's protecting and helping you.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as we're really getting deep on this, one of the things that is very unique is that we mechanically affect the capillary recruitment. If anybody understands what capillary recruitment is, that's one of the things that metformin attempts to do, and actually does in some cases. But you have, as you get older, you have capillaries that are feeding cells that are no longer perfused. So you have the endothelial wall still there, but there's nothing inside. And so by increasing microcirculation, and our studies have shown 66%, that is enough to actually fill those dead. Think of a snake skin, okay? And that being the endothelial walls are still there, but there's no blood inside that's feeding the cells. And so what we do is we mechanically, by pushing and thinning the blood, we fill those, and it's called capillary recruitment. That's really the key what we do.
Wow, that's awesome. So Bob, did you want to add anything?
There we go. Sorry, I was muted there, Mark,
Yeah.
Dr. Mark. Yeah, when Bill actually called me to kind of rope me into, kind of run the business with him here, I'm a very skeptical kind of like, show me, don't tell me, right? So we got a unit here. It was over a year ago, and I started using it. And at first, the first thing I noticed actually was the sleep that you mentioned, Doc. And my sleep was just so, when you get a good night's sleep, everything else changes, right? So that's the first thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed after a couple of weeks, and it wasn't a big deal, it was, usually after you shower, I had these kind of, I call it alligator elbows, and I would just lotion them up. And then a few weeks after I started using it, I noticed that I didn't need to lotion them up anymore. They were smooth, right? Like a baby's behind. So that was kind of cool. And I thought to myself, wow, if that's what it's doing to me on the outside, I wonder what's going on inside with,
Right.
with what's going on here. So it was about a month and a half in, I've had acid reflux, heartburn since I was 18 years old. So for decades dealing with this, and being mostly Italian, I would like my vino once in a while, and that would really cause issues. So I would eat a lot of the antacids, Gaviscon, and all that kind of Rolaids and all that, Tums. And after about a month and a half, I noticed that I wasn't taking them as much, and it's one of those things where you really don't I didn't kind of tie it to the Avicen, and you kind of forget.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple months in, I was like, wow, I'm not using them like at all, because every day I'd be eating them, to deal with the heartburn. And it was the only thing I did different. So quite amazing, because Dr. Byrd, maybe you could address it, but heartburn can lead to some kind of serious issues. Esophageal, right?
Yes, Barrett's esophagus, which is
That's
a horrible condition. Yeah.
Yeah. Not a good way to go, I hear. So
Not at all.
For me, it is, game changing for my life, because now I can enjoy, my favorite beverages and adult, whatever, right? And not have any issues whatsoever anymore. So quite amazing.
Wow, that's awesome.
And again, that's something that, is my personal, I can't say that's going to happen for anybody else. All right. I got to put that disclaimer in here, but there's been some quite amazing things that we hear from people along those lines that, are their testimonial from using this amazing game-changing device.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just listening to you guys blog talk radio, so many different people getting on there and telling their stories. Obviously, it's very heart touching, to see people that have been struggling for answers for so long and have probably spent a small fortune trying to, get a solution. And as we know, if the solution I have is only masking the symptom, okay, well, I'm glad I don't have the symptom, but we still have to figure out what's the bottom line cause of that, right? And do all the right things that we know how to do to help our body restore from within. That's what you're saying. Okay, all the stuff on the outside's going on, but really what's going on the inside? And that's the thing going on the inside, that you actually have a symptom that's expressing itself. There could be all sorts of 65 quadrillion chemical reactions happening every single second based on what your neurology is saying it needs. So as your immune system wakes up and it increases, and I need more of this, I need more of that, hey, the chemistry is changing. So what that means for you is going to be different from each and every person that experiences that, at least at that time and moment, because we all have different needs. It might be my achy feet, it might be, the heartburn, it might be the headaches, it might be the diabetes, it might be anything, and so, to find fundamental truths and principles that we can just do simply every day. Now, I didn't realize I could have just done it 10 minutes. I've been doing it 30 minutes twice a day. And people say, hey, can you do that 30 minutes in the morning and not be like tired all day? And honestly doesn't make me tired. I just get up and go. But at nighttime, it certainly makes me tired.
Yeah, it's got an opposite effect. It gives you more energy in the morning and puts you to sleep at night. On the testimonials, you know, like when I see the what's really surprising about the testimonials to me is when they get on there and they talk about how it's helped them. I would think they would be overwhelming and crying. They don't. They cry when they recall how they used to be, how they couldn't go and see a sunset, how they couldn't leave the house. That's been the most surprising thing to me.
Yeah. Well, it's great when we can be involved in an industry that when we win, they win, and it's a win-win situation all around. And, you know, when we can do things even from home, and this whole week, it's not about trying to sell anything. So we're not here and sharing all this information with the intent for the phones to start ringing and everybody start calling, you know, to buy one. Obviously, people are going to want them, they're going to call and buy them. Okay, but our intent was to get people informed, because a lot of times we might even see the little image of that Avicen. And I've done so many booths around, and I think I've even seen the booth, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't, you know, something people were putting their hands in, you know, so it didn't click of value, benefits, amazing. I mean, all of that until you hear the story. So that's really my intention of having all you guys on. So when people start searching about Avicen, they can find this and they can hear some truths and the facts of really what it is and what it isn't. Okay. And so I learned not to call it a PEMF device anymore. So that's what I thought it was with that. And then some. I thought it was that. I thought the PEMF was actually in the hot stone of some sort, and I was getting it that way. But
yes, it's convention heat. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Convention heat.
It really is remarkable that you found a way to be able to vacuum the hand, vasodilate everything, keep it dilated, so the normal response of the body is to constrict it again, but you can keep it dilated that whole time, hence heat the blood and circulate it quickly through the body and raise the body temperature. So that's awesome. I really appreciate you and all you guys' time today and for coming on. What's the company website if somebody wanted to go check you guys out and get more information?
Absolutely. It's www.newlifeventures.com, and that's NULIFE, so New Life with a U, newlifeventures.com.
And we put that in the chat life for all of you that are on the call today. So thank you guys, and you can always get more information on the Good News Doctor as well. So have a great day. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr.
Thanks,
Mark.
Dr. Mark.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.